I guess we're about ready. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. Thanks for coming to our meeting this evening rather than out drinking and
Later.
we can go later. Tonight we have Dennis with us. Are there any new members, or any not new members, but anybody that hasn't been here before? And how did you happen to find us?
You're my friend.
You came with your friend. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. Are you from the area?
No, I'm out of town.
Okay. Tonight we have Dennis. He's going to speak about the do's and the don'ts for the computer, the iPad, and the iPhone. Thank you, Dennis. Glad to have you back.
Thanks, appreciate it. Check. Everybody hear me? All right. A lot of stuff most of you folks already know, but I'm just going to go through some things and kind of quick through all of the between the Mac, the iPad, and the iPhone, and then pretty much be here for all the questions you guys may have on whatever you want to talk about. I figured something like that. Pretty much everybody has an iPad, iPhone, some kind of Mac. Any Windows people in the crowd tonight? No?
All right, we'll have to speak with you.
Hopefully pick on somebody. All right, just a quick overview. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of your Mac, your iPad, as well as the iPhone, and then be open for questions. All right. So these are kind of in no particular order, but one of the things I want to talk about is how many back up their computers right now? How many have backups? Good. If you don't, you definitely need to get one or two backups. Now, there are different ways to do it. Apple has their built-in time machine, as you all know. And it doesn't get everything, but it is a good backup to not having anything whatsoever. Super Duper is a program I like to use. It does a very good backup, and it does get a lot of things. However, nowadays, I really don't care if the backup is bootable or not. I know that for some people it's a must, but it doesn't make a difference. The bootable means if the hard drive on your computer fails, you can take your external backup drive, plug it into the computer. When it boots up, you can allow the computer to actually boot up from that external drive if you need to. But at the end of the day, most of us can't wait that long. We end up getting our computers fixed or buy a new one, so we just migrate the data in and pick up right where we left off. One of the things nowadays, because of anti-piracy laws, especially Microsoft and Adobe, even with Super Duper doing a full clone of your drive onto a backup, when you go to restore it, all the Adobe files come back over as well as Microsoft. The downside is Microsoft will now ask you for your product key, and if you have your product key or your serial number, you can put it back in, reactivate it, it calls home, and you're fine. Adobe, on the other hand, some of the programs will open, some won't. Often they say you need to reinstall your main file. The problem nowadays is if you have a disk, you got to find it, and you got to find your serial number with it. And hopefully that the new computer you bought also has a CD DVD drive, because the super drives are now missing on the iMacs and some other computers like the MacBook Airs. So you have to have access to that. Most of us, when you buy Microsoft Office and/or you do the Adobe Suite from Creative Cloud, that all comes in off the internet over the web. So you have to try to get access back to your account to re-download the product and reinstall it. Otherwise, things should work just fine. Hopefully. One of the things I like to bring up, because I see this all the time, I get to someone's house, we all have a million wires, there's the computer, and under the desk is just one, big fire trap nightmare. And I always get that client who likes to go, well, thanks for your help today, Dennis, it was great. And she reaches under with her toe and she pushes the power button on the power strip, everything shuts off. And I just kind of go, oh. She's like, what? That's called a dirty shutdown. You can actually lose all the data access to your hard drive as well as your backup drive. If those things are in the middle of writing their index and hierarchy or table of contents, more or less, while you went and pulled the power supply, the data's there, you just can't get back to it. And Muffy Clark, who's a member in this group, went through that one time, and it was a terrible nightmare to get her data back. But please go up to the Apple, quick shutdown, to redo it. Now, sometimes the computer hangs up and you gotta push and hold in a power button or yank the cord, but at that point, there's not many other options. But as a routine, don't just yank the power, or some people have homes that don't even realize that when they walk in a room and they flip the light switch, that activates the one that their stuff's plugged into, and they go, well, every time I walk in a room, I just flip the switch. Don't do that. It's gotta be on all the time. There's a joke, it's true. Hug your Mac daily, it will serve you well, because, Apple, from all the computers that we can have out there from Windows, these things do work well for the most part, and we have the least amount of worries. I would say definitely do your software updates and also do your third-party updates. The ones you're going to see all the time constantly are going to be from Adobe. There are a lot of products from Adobe that people still use for their website design. We all know about Flash. There's Adobe Air, it's like Flash. There's Adobe Reader, which we use for PDF files. There's Shockwave for a lot of gaming. And Adobe's making some other products as well. So normally, because the people who like to hack the websites and cause havoc out there, they use common code. And since Adobe's in everything, what better thing to do is break Adobe. Worse yet, if you haven't heard, at the end of last year, Adobe was hacked into. With that, a lot of their main core design was procured. So because of that, now people have access if they choose to. Besides, of course, a ton of millions of accounts of people in the world, they now have a copy of their actual software and then start doing damage to us if they choose to. And do your updates from Adobe as well. Microsoft does updates. If you use Flip for Mac, Super Duper, they all do updates for a reason. It's usually after an update. Normally, like most programs go from operating system just fine, or within the updates from like 10.9, 10.91, 10.92, 10.93, which will be due out in a month or two already. You should do your updates from them because they do fix a lot of issues. Now, it's okay to wait. I'm one of those guys that I usually wait just a little bit to make sure that everything's clear before I apply the update, just because if everything's working, why change it right away? I usually wait a little bit. But the one that came out recently between the secure socket layer with the Apple, they did fix it, address it quickly, they got it repaired. I would say definitely apply those security updates immediately, because you don't know if you're going to a safe website or not, or if they've been compromised after that. One big thing I try to tell everybody, if you came from a Windows device, this is mainly for you, or if you're old like me and Jerry and some others in the group that started with Apple a long time ago, try not to want to overfix your computer, okay? It's a habit that people go, oh man, I got on the internet, it's running slow. Time to reformat that hard drive. They just bought it a week ago. I mean, this is what people do. And then they call me and I'm going, you did what? I literally have had people, they go, well, I bought an Apple and I took the disk out of the box, I put it in, I installed the operating system. I'm like, it already comes set up, all you have to do is turn it on. So it's amazing what people will do, and I know when you're under duress, especially on the weekend, you're trying to get something done. Don't try to overfix the computer. Take a breath, walk away, come back. Ask the Nmug members, ask the group. There's a lot of people here that have a lot of knowledge. Call me. I answer stuff on the phone all the time. But this is not a Windows device, so don't treat it like that. One of the simplest things to do, which I put underneath it, is run your disk permissions. The only really major thing Apple really wants you to do is before and after any software update for any application, not just Apple, or whether you're going to install some new hardware, equipment, or some new programs, run the disk permissions from your disk utility, which is located in the utilities folder, which is in the applications folder. If you run the permissions before and after, you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever with your computer. Okay.
What's the difference between running your permissions and verifying your disk?
The permissions are basically a bunch of instructions for the subsystem that make sure that you can read, write, and execute a command. Half the time, that's all geek stuff for even me too, so it's over my head. As long as the computer does what it needs to do, you'll see sometimes it'll say, it found an error, should be this, and we fix it to that. You can ignore that. As long as it's fixing it, that's great. If anything lights up in red, then it means it wasn't fixed, it needs to be addressed. But verifying the permissions just means you just verify them. Usually the simplest thing to do is just push the repair button, let it do its job. Verifying the disk, that's something else. That checks the actual hard drive volume itself to see if the volume structures are actually intact. Now sometimes you might be having to slow down the computer and it's starting to get worse and worse. You've got to restart and you have nothing running. You can hit verify disk and it might say, hey, we've noticed there's an issue with the volume. You might have an invalid file structure. You might have an incorrect category B tree. And all that means is basically it has a hierarchy of how things should flow inside the drive. and it's fixed. Oftentimes you have to start up from Apple had their disk used to put in, and used to boot up from the CD. That would run disk utility, repair the drive, which usually that stuff's easy to fix. But if it tells you that the hard drive's having problems or structures that can't be fixed, then that's where you have to call me at the Apple Store, because sometimes you may have to get your data off the drive and then reformat it. But oftentimes it's usually a sign of failure if it's getting to be that bad. You have to replace the drive.
Sometimes, over the years, I've met people at the Apple Store that work there that claim that it's not a good idea to run disk utility all the time.
Well,
is there any reason?
There's no reason. Okay, to answer the question, that's true. Not to run it all the time. Some people go, "Hey, I just turned on my computer, decided to run disk utility." If you didn't install anything, you didn't do any updates, it's absolutely pointless because nothing's really going to change in the system. Now, if the computer had a glitch or a hiccup along the way somewhere, it might find an error and try to correct it. But for the most part, no. I would say the only time you're doing that is actually before and after any software update or install of any kind of software.
I use Super Duper, as you know, and as part of the Super Duper process, which runs every day for me, it does a repair disk utilities. So it is part of the Super Duper process, and so I'm getting this accomplished without having to run it separately.
Which is just as good as one. Thanks, Sherry. One of the things I try to tell people, you're going to see lots of stuff on the internet, you're going to surf pages. The funny thing is, the way people design their web pages now, you can show up at a website and they know you have an Apple. They know if you have a Windows machine, they know if it's an Android phone or if it's an Apple iPad, they know because of the way they write code nowadays. Because of that, you're going to see things that just pop up on the screen. Like I could go to cnet.com to download the latest version of Skype, and in the top corner it says, download right now, Mac Keeper. But if I'm on a Windows computer, it brings up PC repair. So 2 different devices, 2 different advertisements. But with that, I try to tell people, try not to install all these things out to the thing. They're these miracle one-fix, one-stop shops that everybody needs to have. We clean your caches, we clean your permissions, we clean all your duplicates and preferences. Avoid that stuff. Like I said, don't overfix your computer. You don't really need to do that. And plus, oftentimes people put something in, don't even know what they installed. Now it's in there, and it might be wreaking havoc with the system later. They probably didn't uninstall it or know how to uninstall it. How many have an antivirus or anti-malware program on your Mac currently? Good. Antivirus? Anybody have that on their computer? No? Okay. You do not need to put one on there right now. Do not do it. Even the Apple Store geniuses will tell you, if you do put something on there, it's kind of like getting yourself ready for a battle, but you're not sure what tools to take. Do I take a parachute? Do I take a tank? Do I need a bazooka? What am I getting into? Okay, if I'm going to be in the water, those 3 things aren't going to help me. So with the Apple, since we don't really make threats yet, there's no sense in installing something that's not going to protect you if we don't know what we're up against. Now, when Apple gets their first virus, I always joke about it. Shepard Smith on Fox 4 is going to report Apple's got their first virus in a while. So, and even then, I'm not going to be too scared because that's one virus compared to hundreds of thousands of strains for Windows, so I'm not really too worried. And Apple's pretty proactive with their product to keep it safe. If you do put something on there, I know with Comcast they offer Norton for free and some other, if you buy some at Best Buy, they tell you to put Kaspersky on there. The problem with this is, if you have a healthy operating system, let's just say 10.9.3 from Maverick comes out tonight and some people get anxious and they install it. Your antivirus might go, warning, warning, we detected malicious activity. Now you freak out because you've never seen that before. And it says, hit this big red button where it says quarantine, and you go, okay, you quarantine it. Now, you just broke your computer. Now it's going to act goofy and squirrely, and you're going to be calling me or the Apple Store going, I don't know what happened. I think I got a virus. And of course, I'm going to be like, no, you don't. But the program detected changing the operating system. It didn't get its update yet to know that code was actually safe code. So try to avoid it. There'll be talk about it when the time comes, but right now we're still pretty safe. Organize your files into folders. Who doesn't do that? You do that?
I think that is a great idea.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. What I also do is, I know Apple, they've gone for years because, you had a file, and then you had a folder. And then, of course, in that folder, you might have another subfolder in a folder to another folder, and that was done 10 years ago. Now all of a sudden you have to get that item and you go, the hell did I name that thing? And it's true, because we can't remember. Because, at one point it made sense to us, now it makes no sense and we can't find it. They introduced Spotlight, and you take in looking for things, it tends to find stuff and bring it back. But what I ended up doing is I not only do I make my folders, but I also add the date to it. Just so that it kind of makes it a little easier for me to find for myself. Doesn't mean you have to do that, but just it kind of helps.
Isn't there a date assigned to the file anyway?
Yes and no. If your computer was unplugged for a period of time and the internal clock battery didn't maintain, everything in that computer, when you turn it back on, is going to be whatever the splash date was when that one goes on after a battery warning. So it might say March 7th, 1970. Now all your files say 1970. So it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I would definitely, if you at least know what the dates are, at least you have an idea.
And can I add, use a numbering system that is searchable in a good sense, like year, month, day, as opposed to month, year, month, day, year. Make the year the most significant part of the number, then the month, then the day. That search is in a logical structure.
Bob Kennedy likes that idea too.
Well, it definitely is very helpful. So that's one thing I say. Definitely keep your stuff in folders and label it well. Be sure you clean out your downloads folder. Most people forget about that folder. It's actually, I add it to my dock so I can get to it quick. But most people, it's located in your house folder. The problem with that is people download all kinds of stuff and they go, yeah, I updated Adobe. It's in there, but it keeps telling me I need to update it. And I go, did you run the program? I don't know, it said it did. And I get there, I got 12 DMGs of the Adobe Flash Updater. They just kept re-downloading it, but they never actually double-clicked it and went through the install process themselves. And then when they were done, they didn't delete it. Good.
If I download something and then put that in another folder somewhere else, then I go into the downloads folder and delete, it's still somewhere else, right?
Correct. Yeah, the only thing in the left in the downloads folder is the installer. However, some things, if you go to the downloads folder and you go to unstuff it, it'll actually unstuff itself in the downloads folder and you have to pick it up and drag it and drop it wherever it needs to go, desktop, your applications folder. But otherwise, once that's done, then you can delete the installer file.
Did you say download folder was in the house folder?
It's in the house. Yeah, okay, if you go to Macintosh hard drive, you open it up, there's a folder that says users. In the users folder, you're going to see a house. Inside the house, that's basically your account. And then the downloads folder is located in there. Your documents, your movie, your pictures, and that's in there. One of the things I will tell you, and this drives me nuts every day, and I can't help you because I can fix your computer, I can do lots of different things. One of the things I can't do is get inside your head and get back your passwords and answers your security questions. And did I use a capital? Did I use a number? Did I use when I got married? Is it my girlfriend's birthday? I don't remember. And this is what happens. So you got to write these things down. I know there are programs out there, 1Password, there's some others. I'm not a fan just because that's just, one more thing that I have to worry about. And I just worry if that guy quits making the darn program and he doesn't go to the next, Mac OS with it, I got a feeling we're all going to be going, oh my God, how do I get my stuff out of it? So to me, I just write everything down. I keep a running log, I print out a copy. My wife's got a copy, I got a copy. There's a copy in my safe and a copy at the bank. I know it's petty and stupid, but right now our whole life is in that dumb box called a computer now. Our whole life. If I took your computers away tonight, you'd all be jonesing in the ER tomorrow going, oh my apple. It's true. It's a true statement. I mean, you can't do without these things. I can't believe we're not dependent on them. But really, we've got to keep track of your usernames and passwords. Be sure you write down how you type in the answers to your security questions. Give me an example. Over the weekend, my business account's cleaned out of $5,000. I'm fighting Regions Bank now to get the money back. While that's going on, they said you need to update your security questions. But of course, to log into the bank, I had to put in a security question. Well, it asked me, and I can tell you, I don't care. What was your model of your first car? Well, Monte Carlo. Now, when I log into National, it wants to make everything capital because it's proper. I'm like, no, it was lowercase. I can undo it and type in Monte Carlo. I kept trying to make it capital, so for 3 minutes I'm fighting that, and then I get to log in and I'm fine. But you got to write these things down.
When I have those questions and answers, I take a screenshot.
I do
So
that
it's
too.
exactly what and then paste it into my document.
Perfect. And then what I do for myself, I have a Word doc, like a Pages document with the whole list of everything. I put in like a Comcast account, I put the account number, the number, I call the 800 number if I have to. I got my security questions, my username, my password, the date it was set up. If I had to log into Comcast but I forgot my password, I put the date that the password was changed, what the new password is, or any change. So that way, it's kind of a running thing. You can do them alphabetical if you want. Me, I just put them in any which way. But that way, once I'm all done, I copy all my stuff. I make a fictitious contact name in my iPhone, put it in, and I just, in the notes section, I paste it all. So no matter where I'm at, I got access to all my stuff. Now, is that the smartest thing in the world to do? No, but here's how I look at it. Security is only temporary, because as a bank told me, you need to change your password to your account. I said, they used my debit card, they ran into the system on the internet, they're already in the system, I can't change that. If Target, who said you've all been compromised, well, they want you to change your password and security questions. Password's fine, security questions, you can if you want, but at the end of the day, they're already in the mainframe account. Once they're in, whether your password's 4 digits or 150, it makes no difference. They're already in the system. So do what you can for yourself, keep it simple. You know, you can, I would say things like Gmail, AOL, and Yahoo, those, if you have those email addresses, I would change your password every so often. They get hacked all the time. And the problem with those is there's a lot of spoofs on an email. Somebody clicks on to see what it is, and that actually gives the person rights to your account. You basically sign over your Gmail, you sign over your AOL, you sign over Yahoo. I've seen it tremendous times.
What is spoof?
It just says, we've noticed some weird activity in your Gmail account. Click here to resolve, you know, and they look legit. They got all the logos and you know, everything looks legit. You click on it, go, oh, I wonder what that is. Because it catches you off guard. You click on it, you go, no, I delete that. Well, they deleted it, but actually you just gave permission to someone else. It's like a DocuSign. You legally said, there, you got access to my account. And when you go to log in later, it says, enter your password. Now the password don't work. You're like, okay, well, I need to reset it. Well, the email's not correct. Well, it is. I've been using it. You have an alternate email. That doesn't work anymore. Well, then you call, you do a challenge security question. Your security questions don't work. Then you go, what the heck happened? If you actually can get to a live person in Google or chat, they tell you the account's been compromised, you have no control of it anymore, sorry, wish you the best of luck, and open up another account. Which means at that point, if you don't have a copy of your contacts, your calendars, or other emails that are important, you're going to be out of luck. Just remember, free is as free does. Gmail, AOL, Yahoo, Outlook.com, and many others are all free services. They are not obligated to do anything for you. So just be careful where you put your stuff. This sounds silly, but it's true. You've got to keep your keyboard, mouse clean. That spray away glass cleaner, you get that at almost any place. I think Walmart, Home Depot. It's non-ammonia, non-abrasive. I just spray on a rag first, wipe off the keys. You know, Apple uses nice, pretty white keys, which is great, but they show the dirt. Wipe the bottom side and top side of your keyboard and mouse, and it'll be just fine. We do recommend Duracell batteries. They actually work well. Just remember, your keyboard and mice that are wireless do run on batteries. The funny part for me is I set up computers for people all the time. And usually about 3 or 4 weeks I get a phone call. Hey, you know, that keyboard you put in for me don't work anymore. Did you give me a bad one? No. Did you check the batteries? Well, I don't know, there ain't no batteries in this thing. Where would you put them? Because when you flip it over, you don't see a door or anything. Apple's real ingenious with the little tube at the end. I said, no, there's one of the coin slot, you got to turn it, 2 batteries pop out. You're like, oh, I had no idea. People forget. So keep some Duracell batteries on hand, they do well. I will tell you, don't keep them in the fridge.
Don't?
Don't. I know everybody does that. It's an old thing to help, you know, prolong their life. But at the end of the day, their shelf life doesn't have to be in the fridge. But if they're in the fridge, they're cold. Most people take them out of the packet, they toss them in the device. Now there's some condensation. So what happens is they actually tend to corrode real quick. It can happen overnight. It's pretty sad.
Well, that's interesting because I always kept mine in the refrigerator, and I've had a lot of problems with Duracell or Kirkland. And it's probably being caused by the condensation.
Yep, so it's one of those things I learned hardly too.
One of the reasons I keep them in the refrigerator is I mix them up. The old ones with the new ones, so if I pick a battery, it's cold, that's a good one.
What do you keep the old ones for?
No, when you take them out, you have them on the table, and you accidentally take them out before you throw them away.
You could, but I would leave them out, you know, let them dry out, put them warm up to room temperature first. That'll work. That's fine. Get a
Is there
question?
any advantage to spending the extra money for a lithium battery?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I want the batteries plus bus one day and I talked to the guy, and he was actually pretty cool, and I said, okay, I see you got these Nuvo batteries that are Battery Plus brand. I said, there's like 30 of them here for $4. They're a AA alkaline rival door cell, which you get 2 for the same price. You kind of go, well, what gives? The guy goes, they're the same battery. He goes, there's only 3 companies in the world to make them all. They just slap door cell everywhere. He said, however, door cell is better than Energizer. Here's the thing. Inside the black part of that, where it's striped off, these are little clock batteries. There's like 4 to 6 of them in a row. They all touch each other, and you would never know until you unravel one. There's a bunch of watch batteries. That's all these things are. I thought there was something more to them. I thought they held all this energy. They're just a bunch of watch batteries. I was like, you've got to be kidding. All these years, I had no idea. So, but Duracell is a better battery because it's actually, just overall, it's got 1 extra cell in it. I just know it lasts a little longer. It tends to do well. Depending upon the products, because most things, those are 1.5 volts. A lot of the smaller ones are 1.3 volts. They don't last as long, or they may not give enough power, so your items may or may not work. So you have to look and see what the power recommendation is on your items.
This is not for that type of battery, but for those of us who are old and have hearing aids. I found out that the replacement battery, some of the brands, when you take the tab off, you have to wait 2 minutes before you can use them. They are not up to full voltage, and if you put them under load, they will never get the full voltage. So,
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
so I actually, on my desk, I have a voltmeter, and when I take the tab off,
Only Jerry.
Well, this is Jerry's official title, so.
I went through a whole pack. I had to get a pack of 10, and 9 of them didn't work. So I threw them away, and then I went to Walgreens, and I said, your batteries are no good. She said, did you wait a minute? I said, there's nothing on the package that tells you that. Nothing on the package.
Here we thought you needed to buy hearing aid batteries and a voltmeter. I got it.
Jerry, you ought to put that in your next article.
That's going to be on the Mac 411.
That will be on the 28th. I will have a hearing aid comment for you.
I bet you get all kind of answers for that one.
We'll get about another 700 members.
They're all going to go, what?
Yeah, but they won't be able to attend their meetings because they can't hear anything.
They'll all be deaf.
Now, some of this in this lecture, go ahead.
Dennis, if you have a camera that takes that kind of battery, it usually rejects it at 1.4 volts. It will work fine in your mouse or your little trackpad.
That's true, even for the remote controls.
So
That's
don't just throw it out. You can use it in your other, your mouse.
Absolutely, that's correct. Yeah, because you can use it in remote controls, things that use less energy, and still get more life out of your battery.
Mitch, I had a friend of mine that was sold on those lithium batteries. Get them on Amazon, they last 3 times as long. And I got some, and I'm telling you, those things burned up quicker than the Duracell.
I went down, they probably have less cells in them. I mean, I didn't realize these were part. I had no idea. I was just shocked. It's not what I thought the internet looked like. Battery backups, everybody should have one of those, and I've got a picture with the like coming up. But you need to have a battery backup for your computers, so if the power goes off, it keeps you safe from a dirty shutdown. Things on usually there's 2 different sides of battery backup in the back. One says surge only, the other side says battery backup and surge. Your computer, your battery backup, in your external hard drive, your backup should be on the backup side. Your speakers, your laser printer, your printer, small LED light, which I don't recommend put lights in these things, but something that uses low voltage could be on the other side.
I did that, and I found that the printer, since wireless, is better off if it's protected on the battery. Otherwise, you lose the connection and you have to set it up.
Well, yeah, whatever's best for you, but normally you have to buy a big enough unit because if the printer pulls enough energy and the computer's trying to pull enough energy.
No, I meant if it's not on battery backup.
Oh, yes.
If it's on the surge. So wireless equipment that's linked through your network, you don't want to lose.
Yeah, you want that on battery backup as well, even better for your Comcast.
On the battery, on the backup, if they start stopping periodically, is that a sign the battery's?
Pretty much. Now, the manufacturer says you should get 2 to 3 years out of these things. they're full of crap. I get about a year and a half, really, before things start happening. Because oftentimes you think, oh, power went off, or maybe it was on and the power had gone off and the battery just depleted and the whole thing shut down. No, these things do periodic self-checks for themselves. It's built in. And at a certain point, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, these things all go, I don't know what their internal clocks are. Mine just happens during the day, too. So you hear a click, beep, and then all of a sudden, if a piece of equipment goes off, I know my battery's shot. So I have to go either replace the battery or replace the unit. Depending on how old it is, if it's more than 2.5, 3 years, I go buy a new unit, because in Florida, we get so many surges and brownouts here that unit might be starting to die anyway, so I'd rather just have a fresh piece of equipment. But Batteries Plus does replace them, and if it's, oftentimes it's cheaper to replace the battery than to buy a new unit.
Dennis, the last time you said you went to Battery Stop, replaced the battery, you just said now you buy a new unit.
Well, it depends on the age.
I'm sorry?
It depends on the age. If it's a year old and the battery failed, then just, you can go there and get a new battery. If it's 3, 4, 3 years old, I wouldn't waste your time on it.
What
Now,
brand do you use?
Normally, I use APC and I use Furman, because I have in my recording studio, I have bigger equipment. And now my APCs, they're older, they're 5, 6 years old, but these things are rack mountable ones for, they run some heavy equipment. I buy the batteries and those things. So this battery replacement alone in one of my racks is like $400 to $500. So for me, it's a little more expensive.
Where do you get the Furman?
From audio companies, Sweetwater, Full Compass. I can talk more about that in a little bit.
Do the power surges that the electrical companies put on their meter work?
No. I will tell you that whatever the electric company tells you, if you look at the small print, what they put on the outside of your house only protects your 220 equipment. That's your water tank, your dryer, your stove, things that take the 220 stuff. In small print, it says if you have computers or delicate equipment, you still need to deploy the power surge strips and these different things.
Yeah, aren't those battery backups? I know we got a couple of them from my house at Costco.
Yeah, Trip Light. I'm going to show you. They're actually, they've all gotten better now because
And they're like
based on-
$89 for the bigger
Yep,
unit.
Trip Light and Cyber Power actually.
So they're all right?
They're okay. Yeah, I'm going to bring that up there on the next slide. One of the things before I get there is try to make your computer work ergonomic as possible. Try to get yourself comfortable. If your butt starts going numb, your feet start going numb, you gotta have to maybe rethink a chair, rethink how you're bent over. Maybe your desk is too short, too tall, too far back, too far forward. You get a headache. Just, I'm sure you've all figured it out, but if you're not sure why, it's probably how we're sitting and what we're doing. And also, don't forget, turn some lighting on in the room. Most people like to work in the dark. That's not good for us either. The bigger unit here on the bottom right is APC. That's 1500 volt amp. Basically, all that means is it can handle more equipment. So if someone's going to buy that Mac Pro with the big 4K sharp monitor, you want one of those. That'll keep that thing running. The smaller ones up there, what most people commonly see, they usually start between $39, and of course, sky's the limit with these things. Oftentimes, people, what happens to me most of the time, I get clients who they spend the money on a new house or new business. They put crown molding in, marble and granite floors. They got, the beautiful paint, and their paintings come in signed by God, the person I have no idea who they are, and they're all excited. And then I go, well, we need one of these battery backups, and I need to also get an external hard drive for a backup. And they go, what? I'm not spending another $100 on this. And of course, they call me because something does always happen. So, and I end up running to the store and buying one of these things.
Dennis,
Okay.
there is something about, because I'm not an electrical engineer, and as I evaluate these surge protectors, something about voltage, I should get the higher number, if it's 1100 versus 50, and I don't
Yes.
remember what.
Well, basically, it's what it draws.
Just
so-
talk to as a
Okay.
girl.
Think of it this way. Actually, these way, look at it this way. If you have a computer, this might use 45 watts of energy, not a whole lot, okay? If that thing can support 1,000 watts, you fit right in just fine. If you have a hair dryer, which is 1,800 watts, and 1,000 watts, you're going to blow that thing up. Okay? So anything that's a heating element. Then the reason why I'm going to bring this up is I have people who say, well, I only have a couple outlets in the room, and when May gets here, she sees my surge strip on the floor, the vacuum cleaner goes in, and she's like, and all of a sudden I get to the house, and half of the thing's melted. I'm going, what the heck happened here? And they're like, we don't know, just start doing that. Well, here I found it one day, it's made, plug it into it. Yeah, those things are not designed to pull heavy amperage. A vacuum cleaner, hair dryer, heating element stoves, you go on a camping trip, you don't plug stuff into that. That's for smaller things, delicate stuff. That's for your wireless cordless phones in the house, your computers, TV sets are fine. Often, some in the back of these, none of them have it on here, some of these actually have the coax cable, the part you screw in the wall for the cable TV. That actually takes the hit first. Remember, two ways to get electricity in your house quick is the phone line and the cable line. They're pretty much direct copper from the street straight to that port in the wall. And if your TV's plugged, you can have the TV plugged into all this stuff here, but if it comes out of the wall and goes right to the back of the TV fries when the surge comes, no matter what you have. That's actually happened to me, so.
So you don't think the cable should not be attached to the surge protector?
It should.
Should.
Should. Now, you're going to get different stories because Comcast says we're not going to touch it if it's plugged into that. You've got to call them out for service. You know,
Unplug it when I call.
but the funny part is I've had a lot of those units actually take the hit and do their job, just replace the unit and found out, wow, it's fine because otherwise it'd been my piece of equipment. You know, it's a give or take. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, that's why I say rent the modem from Comcast because when it fries, you can hand it back to them and get a new one for free. If you buy your own, they're $100 a piece. So if you get zapped 6 times in the summer, because we have a bad summer, that's $600 you're out versus 6 free replacements included in your $7 monthly rental. So things to keep in mind. It is okay to keep your computer running all the time. Some people have the old mentality of shutting it down, so you can leave it on. I just restart my web once every week or two, or when there's a big update. But otherwise, it's okay to leave it on. You do need to have high-speed internet. Most of you know that, but a lot of people don't. They just go, well, I only want to get just, it says high-speed. They got it. And I go, well, what's your speed package? They go, I don't know, it's high-speed. Well, I have a lot of clients in Marco still that have a lot of the older modems from CenturyLink, and they got like 1 megabyte down and half a megabyte up. Everyone here knows that's dial-up speed. It's that bad. And then, of course, I get there and I call, and all of a sudden they get a new modem overnight. Now they're at 10 and 20 megs, just like that. But they do that don't ask, don't tell policy for some reason.
Is there any other option other than really Comcast?
No. I'm going to tell you right now, how many live, well, I know, how many here are from Marco, I know. But do you have Comcast, or do you have Marco Cable, which is now
Comcast.
You're Comcast. How many live in Vineyards or Pelican Bay? Okay. I know the Vineyards or Pelican Bay?
Pelican Bay.
Okay. The Vineyards, I'm going to give you a little horror story so you can prep for it now. Long story short, you've heard of, I know you guys, as of August through November, you guys have a deployment coming from a new company in town called Summit. They used to be Newview, which they're based out of Marco Island. Somehow down the line, a gentleman who's on the board of the Vineyards, I'm not sure what his whole role play and everything was, but basically decided that the Vineyards needed to have fiber optic internet and one service provider, kick out Comcast, DirecTV, CenturyLink, and anyone else that I had mentioned. So what he did was, instead of having a vote to say, are you happy with your service? Would you like Summit? No, they just said, oh, they're coming and it's going to cost you all $500 to have it put in. Everyone went, excuse me? Well, okay, so people, they had no say so. They tried at board meetings, they wouldn't hear us. I went with Comcast and CenturyLink representatives, have a meeting with these folks, they didn't want to hear us. Because, I had a lot of questions for them. Did they answer me? No. So what happened was, they had a card table, a little girl set up, and all these little boxes on her desk sitting outside the middle of the street in Vineyard. And people walked up, like going, here's my address, thank you for my box. So what I do is that we go home and you wait. Somebody will knock on your door and put this thing in. Okay, but that's after they dig up your yard for some houses to put this thing in. So it got to be really ugly for the Vineyards. The fiber optic was in the street, but it wasn't at the house yet. The funny part is the speed wasn't as fast as Comcast or CenturyLink. In order to get those speeds, you had to pay extra to get the upgraded modem to get the extra speed.
Oh.
Yeah, things they don't tell you. Now, my question was, how many here have Comcast as an email address or CenturyLink.com or CenturyLink as an email address? A lot of people did. Well, what happened was they said, you don't have CenturyLink or Comcast, and guess what we don't? We don't provide email addresses. So there's no Summit.com for email. So now that means you don't have your Comcast anymore. Some people had it for years. You don't get your CenturyLink, DirecTV, and some others, the satellite have different services. You lose all that. Now you can keep those services, but you pay extra for it, plus still pay for the service for Summit, which, is a really nice thing. So that puts you back in the boat of now I need to get free email, which is either Gmail, AOL, Yahoo, and a few others. So it wasn't very fair. Pelican Bay, I don't know if you noticed, that I could be totally wrong, but I talked to a few people who seem to be pretty much know what's going on. It's going to cost $10 million or so to put the trunk lines in. Apparently the fiber optic's not even in Pelican Bay yet. So, or it's to a certain point and they gotta finish it. So if you take, example, 6,000 people, it says that it's gonna be about $1,600, to do this.
I'm on that committee. I'm probably correct. There's a lot of misinformation that's going around. Number one, it's probably going to cost each individual probably $1,000 less per year for their cable. We hired an independent, we learned from the mistakes of Vineyard.
Okay.
We hired an independent engineering firm 3 years ago from Indianapolis to come down, survey all of the communities in Pelican Bay, and check whether or not fiber to the building, we're putting in our own net. We have nothing to do with Comcast. We're laying our own fiber. Okay?
Right.
And it's going to cost $7.5 million.
Okay.
And that will be recovered by $21 a month times 6,500 doors for 5 years, and then that's paid back and that goes away. And that will also include HD, will include your high-speed internet, and
my question to you is though, what are you gaining? Because I don't want to fight you, I just want to ask you questions, because you're actually giving me some information.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what do you gain and when do you get your money back? Because if I got to pay over time, I got to pay into it to get it. If you already have Comcast or CenturyLink now.
Your cost is going to be less than you're paying now to Comcast, okay? You're going to recover the $7.5 million is going to be paid by $21 a month per person. Your cost, you won't have a Comcast bill every month.
No, but you're still got a Newview bill.
It's a bundled.
And then, well, I know, but they're tiered, so you get that base package, but if you want to step up, you got to pay a little bit more.
Everything's included in it.
No, you have three tiers, because you get 100, the first tier is what's
It's going to be
included.
100 up and 100 down, everybody gets that.
That's flat for everybody. Because
That's
the paper
flat
I
for
looked at,
everybody.
was something.
HD is flat for everybody,
Okay.
and your internet is flat for everybody. We have a very good contract, okay? They're very anxious for this to be successful. We've got a contract that nobody else would ever give us. Certainly not Comcast. Comcast were one of the final people to answer the RFP, and they would not bring fiber to the building, period. They didn't answer the RFP, and that was the big problem. And there were a lot of poison pen letters that went out.
I just know from my experience, because I had to fix a lot of problems in the
Yeah,
years.
well,
And hopefully you guys did the right thing. You got your
Well, we had
committee
to
down
do
there.
it, and they have to go according to our engineers' specs. So we brought in a totally independent firm. And if at any time they don't perform properly, we have the option to buy out the passive component, that is the fiber in the ground, for 20% of their cost. So for $1.5 million, we can buy the whole thing and have Google. And Verizon would have done the same thing, except we needed about 1,000 more people.
Well, and one of the things to keep in mind too, and you have to understand, Comcast isn't the best thing in town. They're not. Nor CenturyLink, nor DirecTV. Listen, when we have service and it works, I'm happy. When it doesn't, we're all miserable. That's given. But one thing I've learned, at least with Comcast, they do have separate teams. They have line teams that just do the trunk lines and the trench lines, in the streets and the main run, especially in high-rise complexes. They got your everyday techs that come in and just do Xfinity Home for TV. They got them for cable. They got a lot of people, a lot of trucks. And of course, this time of year, unfortunately, we get a lot of the subcontractors who aren't as skillful as most of the techs, but they're there. There's a wide gamut. If I call, there's going to be a truck coming at some point. Summit, they're growing their company.
Yeah.
And I just hate this.
They're interested to be a success.
I know, but I mean, how fast can they address all the homes? Because I can tell you, a lot of people in Vineyards have problems. People had to wait weeks or a month to get someone to come out to their house.
They're hiring an entirely new staff for just dedicated.
Well, that's just one question I'd ask. Just make sure that you have enough people to take care of your needs.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of people in
Well,
Pelican Bay.
if they don't, then we take it over. Hire somebody else.
Thanks for the information. I
No,
appreciate it.
it's-
Thank you.
Dennis, as soon as I can get Prism TV, I'm switching my TV and television. I haven't decided to get it back cable from Comcast.
I still, because Comcast, compared to the fiber, Comcast is going to give you the fastest rates. And they've actually, their speed boost and their stream blast, I mean, they're flying
Yeah.
right now. So, I mean, it's their speeds, they're only going to get faster because everybody's in the business to compete.
Mitch, I've read about Google coming into several towns.
Yep.
None close to here, but
None close to
if
here,
Goo-
that's true.
if Google announces we're coming to Naples tomorrow, what actually are they doing? I mean, like when they're in Provo, I know they bought a company in Provo, But what are they actually doing? Are
I
they
think it's
laying
almost the
fiber?
same thing as Summit's doing. They're coming into town, they're provide a service. The biggest thing is, though, at the end of the day,
But the speeds they advertise are just wild.
they are, because they're using a different way that they multiplex the data packets. And
Okay.
that's really why we have to update our phones. That's why we have to update our Wi-Fi units. You know, from a G spectrum, a B or an A, now we have AC. It keeps changing, or the N network. It's because how data is sent and these different protocols, it's like how they can package a ton of information to get it to you. Quick overview. People want to go out and buy that new 4K TV, you know, from Samsung or Sharp. You can spend a lot of money to have 4,000K, it's like 4,000 lines of resolution on your TV. That's a beautiful. Turn them on. You may have to, Intel's got, there's a processor in the computer that wants to control the wireless as well as the wireless card that's inside the computer. And then they fight each other. People go, well, I don't know how to get my Dell to work. So they have to be trained to say, okay, I know how to fix your Dell. They don't even spend any time on Apple, because really there isn't much time to do with Apple. It's actually pretty simple, but a lot of people don't, you know, get the education. You can call me, call the Apple Store. A lot of people here can tell you it's usually simple steps of unplugging and replugging in a certain order. Everything comes up and works just with their networks. You don't have to do a whole lot of stuff.
Mitch, you know, for Comcast or for cable, the DOCSIS 3 is now the standard to have.
Correct.
And if you have one, you really need to upgrade. But is there a 4 or a 5 on the horizon? And if so, how
Everything's
long?
on the horizon. The problem is it's the protocols, and I don't know what they're going to adopt next. Just like you, believe it or not, there was a FireWire 1200. How many have had FireWire on our computers? 400, 800 for drives. I've had FireWire 1200 was supposed to come out, but then Intel and Apple got together to this, you know, Thunderbolt technology. That's supposed to be, you know, light years ahead of that. And then you had USB 3.0. I'm not a fan of USB, but 3.0 is actually pretty fast.
Yeah.
So there's talk of 4.0. It's like everything moves up to generations. I just take it as it comes. I don't want to be the first early adopter, because half the time people get into things and they don't complete it or don't go as far as they thought. And then now you're stuck with equipment they like that 4K TV. Might look pretty, but until you get content on it, it's just another Canadian TV at the end of the day.
Or made as video recorders.
They were awesome. I still have one. Best picture ever.
Yeah.
Real quick, just let's see here. If you're installing new software or hardware, remember, if you can buy a new printer from the store, you took it off the shelf, took it home, don't use the disc that came in the box, okay? Because oftentimes it's been packed in the warehouse for 6 or 8 months. By the time it got to distribution, got to, you know, Best Buy, Office Depot, and you got it home, it's already old. Just go to hp.com or Lexmark, whatever you buy, just download the drivers, and then you'll be set. Actually, with the new operating system, when you plug it in, it recognizes, and it actually will install the drivers for you, which is actually kind of nice. Even Windows does that now. They copy that one. Delete items or uninstall apps you no longer use, because that's true. Some people just leave things linger and they're not sure. Some don'ts. Don't store all your files on the desktop. I have a lot of people that do that. Think of it like an elephant sitting on your desk and you're trying to do a Christmas card and you're trying to move his big butt out of the way. You just can't do it. You know, file it. We have documents folder, make subfolders, get it off the desktop. It makes your computer work harder. Same thing for the dock. The more items you stick on your dock, you need to have every freaking cool app in the world down there, and they're all this big until you mouse over and then they're nice and big.
Georgie.
That's funny. But actually, if you go to Activity Monitor, you can watch how much usage and memory grows just by having a lot of. What I do is I just put the applications folder down next near the trash can. You can put folders on that side, and I click on that. It brings up a nice grid pattern in my apps. I pick the one I want and click. So it's quick and easy. You can do stacks. I know you guys talked about that recently, I think. But there's things you can do, but try not to overload it. That's fun. Let's see. Like I said, don't fall for the all-in-one miracle applications. They cause more harm than good. You don't have to tune loop your computer all the time. Do not defragment your hard drive. I talked about that the last time we met with some of you folks. The problem is Apple keeps track of it. Okay, these hard drives are big. There's plenty of space to work. But if you have these laptops that have the SSD drives in them, it's an Einstein trick. It's an algorithm that keeps track of where your data is being written, how many times it gets written before the drive has got to be replaced. If you start defragging your drive, you're now changing what the algorithm is supposed to do. So don't do it. It's not really needed. One is little weird, quirky things. Sleep. So a lot of people, they close their lid and they walk away, or they come back later, they open the lid and it doesn't wake up again. Think of it like when someone kind of nods off, you go, hey, and you go, what? And they wake up. But imagine nodding off and actually falling asleep and not waking up till tomorrow morning. sometimes the computer does that. How many people walk over to the computer when it was on and been unresponsive with a black screen and you had to push the power button in or pull the plug and get it to wake up again? It's because sleep was invoked, whether you went up and clicked Apple menu and said sleep, or you actually close the lid of your device. It's a weird phenomenon. It's at random with different Apple products, whether it's the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, what generation, it was a PowerBook, a MacBook, an iBook, it didn't matter. Windows has the same issues. Their computers go to hibernate. I never get them back on without beating them up.
So what are you saying?
Don't use it if you don't have to.
Now, do we change the default in
What I
system preferences?
do in the energy settings and system preferences, I set my computer slide over to never shut off the hard drive. Let the hard drive run. If you're not using it, it sits idle anyway.
Okay.
The only thing I do is I move the display over to like, on my on my main computer is like 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, my screen goes black. When I walk over, bump the mouse or the keyboard, it wakes up instantly. If you put it to sleep, a lot of people, hang on a second. If you put it to sleep, what happens is some people work faster and the computer wakes up. So they go, boom, internet, email. Oh, needs password. Oh, can't find a server. What the heck's going on? It's because the computer is waking up, you're checking email, getting on the internet, and the Wi-Fi was still trying to get on the connection to Comcast, and then we think there's a problem with the computer. Things do happen from sleep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got my laptop hooked up to a display and keyboard and mouse and all that stuff, and I usually just leave the lid down while it's hooked up.
That you can because it's not sleeping, it's still functional. Apple allows you to close the lid to work with the external display.
Okay, so
Yeah, you're okay.
So you're saying don't use sleep? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I don't use sleep. It's kind of recommended not to, but they put it in there.
Don't use sleep for the computer.
Or the
What?
or the laptop. The main
But-
desktop
But the display, fine.
display's fine, yes.
So even if I don't have any external backups, anything plug in, I still shouldn't be using the sleep?
Yeah, I don't recommend sleep at all because you're going to get erratic behavior. Some people may not have an issue, but I've had people to say, my old computer worked fine, I put to sleep, my new one, golly, my external hard drive keeps saying, you incorrectly unmounted your drive. They said, I didn't unmount anything. But what happened was when it went to sleep, it actually broke the connection to your external hard drive. Well, when you go to wake it up again, it gives you the error that you actually yanked it out. So
your suggestion, not only don't put it to sleep, but also go into systems preferences and put never sleep?
right, never sleep on the computer part. The display goes
Right,
to sleep.
the
The display uses
right.
the most energy, so when that goes off in a few minutes, it'll be
Okay.
fine.
But can I close my lid if I have it?
If you
never
close-
go to sleep?
If you close your lid, it's still invoked, if the computer's on and you don't have an external display, it's still going to put it to sleep automatically.
So just leave
Leave the lid up and just walk away.
Okay.
Yep.
But don't move the laptop.
You can't.
I'm
Yeah.
still a little confused about what we adjust in system preferences. Can you
Okay.
just review that again?
Yeah, when you open up, you go to System Preferences, click on the display, you're
Yeah.
going to see across, energy settings. When you go across the top, you're going to see the computer, when to put the computer to sleep itself. I say never, all the way to the end. It warns you, just say whatever, just ignore that.
Yes.
Down below it says, once the display goes to sleep, I say, for my desktop, it's about 20 minutes, my laptop, I say 3 to 5 minutes. And then it just shuts it off.
But then on a new computer, the one down below that says put hard drive to sleep.
Yes,
Whenever
uncheck that.
possible, you have to
Uncheck
take
that.
action, yeah.
Uncheck that, but make sure wait for network activity is checked. That's usually turned off on some of the computers. So in that same setting, turn where it's the checkbox below that would say uncheck where it says put hard drive to sleep when possible. That's unchecked. Below that says wait for network activity should be checked.
So wait, if you uncheck the put hard drive to sleep, is it always running?
No, because if you're not using it, it parks itself. It just kind of sits there. And the SSD drive doesn't do anything until you talk to it, so it's just sitting idle. But the wait for network access kicks in, so that way if the computer works behind the scenes, it says, hey, go check calendar updates, go check contacts, go check email. If the web page is up, refresh if it has to.
How about the issue of moving a laptop when it's not sleeping?
Okay.
So sad.
No, don't. The thing is, if you're going to move any computer, laptop, desktop, as far as the SSD drive is concerned, that's fine. It's like an iPad. But one that has a conventional rotational hard drive, like a needle on a record thing, close the lid, may put it to sleep, or even shut down, depending on where you're moving it to. But if you're at the coffee shop, you're done working, and you need to catch the bus, close the lid, it's going to go to sleep, you can deal with it later, but at least you know. then you can go safely. But wait till the thing actually goes to sleep and you see somebody's have a pulsing light.
Don't walk around like this.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
hard drive is spinning and you are not smooth enough to, I mean, the head is just a micron above the surface. And as you move it, you could bounce it down and you just scar the hard drive.
And that's important, Dennis, that just putting the lid down, it doesn't necessarily go to sleep immediately.
Not immediately,
You need to make
yeah.
sure it's
It has
not
to, yeah,
asleep.
exactly.
On the iOS devices, do you recommend turning them off or just putting them to sleep or closing the lid or whatever?
I mean, like the iPad, and
Right.
whether you use the lid or not, I mean, they're designed to turn themselves on. You can set the time on them. I think mine's set for 30 seconds or whatever.
But does that actually turn it off as opposed to you?
No, because they're
just-
still running. Like you just hit the home button or the tap the top button, it wakes right up.
So should you do that?
No, they operate differently. They're not the same as the Apple computer. So.
Dennis,
The new machine has a thing I've never heard before, enable power nap while plugged into a power adapter.
Basically, it's kind of like it's an extra sleep. It kind of gives it it does functions while it's napping.
Do you want me to leave it checked or unchecked?
I just leave whatever Apple has for that setting. I leave it alone. So just check, leave
Or
it checked.
is checked?
Yeah, leave it checked.
Okay.
Because that's new on some of the computers that it has to do its own.
So leave that one checked.
If you have that, not all computers have it.
Thanks.
Good question. Let's see. Just remember, a lot of things, if you want to know why your computer's running slow, a lot of things run behind the scenes background. But now a lot of us have Dropbox and it's syncing. Some have Carbonite, which is an online backup service. That's running. Time Machine runs every hour on the hour. You have Google Drive and other things. A lot of things are they're running behind the scenes, and they also, make the computer slow down.
Dropbox and some other programs that I have installed ask you whether to allow external connections, and it's either allow or deny, and if you allow it, then you have to put in your administrative password stuff. What's the best answer for that?
There's no password for that.
You don't have to put in your password.
Well, I don't run administrator account, I run user
Oh,
account.
for administrator, then you have to, because you have to allow it, because you make a change to the operating system. But I would do that one on the admin side. I wouldn't do it from the standard user side.
But would you allow it or would you disallow it?
Well, here's how it works. It's kind of like if you install Adobe Photoshop, it's going to ask you, do you want to install this in your computer? And they give you all that legalese, which Georgia can read and I can't. But if I say decline, then I don't get Adobe Photoshop. If I say install it, I'm just assuming whatever this thing says, and I'm moving on and I can't use my software. So Dropbox and those things, if you know where the software came from, then install it. If you don't know where the software come from, don't install it.
I think maybe what you're talking about, because I have that, I think in somewhere in my system preferences, I have something about I have to give permission for any connection. So whenever I turn my computer on to use my Dropbox, it says Dropbox wants to establish a connection. Will you deny it or allow it?
Oh, yeah.
And I have to allow it. I never get asked for a password, but I have to allow it if I want to use my Dropbox.
Well, that's probably because you ask it to allow you. For me, if you go, it's in system preferences,
Right.
it's under security settings and privacy, and you can allow Dropbox to do it automatically.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. Because if that's something you want to use, you're not going to want to be bothered by constantly trying to allow or not allow. Like I said, avoid plugging anything into the non-computer related stuff into like a vacuum blender, coffee pot. Don't plug it into your battery backup. Even shredders. Everyone's got a shredder, and that draws so much amperage. I mean, I've watched computer screens just flutter and shake when they operate the thing, so don't do it. Let's see. Remember, your keyboards and mice don't swim. Okay, they didn't get the class at the Y. And so keep all your beverages away. If you've got a wireless mouse and keyboard and they get wet, they may fry, you just replace it with one of those items. If they have a cord attached, like the old ones do, some of us have full-size keyboards that plug into the back of the computer. If it gets wet, it's enough to cause a short out of all your ports in the back, which means you can lose all your USB and FireWire ports, Thunderbolt ports, all at one shot. And if you don't have Apple Care, you might be buying a new computer. Okay, Bob Kennedy, don't place everything on your dock. Don't assume that, one thing is don't assume all your stuff is backed up automatically. Some people go, yeah, I bought the computer. I got this backup drive. I got a backup. Did you plug it in? Are you running Time Machine? They don't know. So There's usually a little bit of setup with anything you use, whether you're using Super Duper, Carbon Copy Cloner, Time Machine, Carbonite. There's something you're going to have to do to make sure your backups work. And there are limitations to what does and does not get backed up on some items. One of the things I will tell you is important, do not place your only copy of something. So I have an iMac. I got my wedding video right here. Do not take that copy, stick it on an external hard drive, and then delete it from there. Because if the hard drive drops and breaks or quits working, my wife will shoot me. So you need to have it on a computer, but if I need to move it off here for other things, it goes on this drive, maybe this drive. It may be we used to be able to use DVDs, but they don't work anymore, so, jokingly, they're being phased out. So make sure you have whatever you want in more than one location. It's important. If you're unsure what's going on with your computer, if you're having problems with your network, and Comcast can't help you, ask somebody in the Nmug group. This is a great bunch of people. I love you guys. Been here a long time. You guys do a lot of good work. Jerry, your stuff in newspaper is great. Call me, call the Apple Store. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Because oftentimes I get a lot of Windows people on the Apple platform, and their first thing is to erase, reformat, and do something, or install antivirus, and that's not the answer. Just remember your computer will slow down at different times. You might get inactivity, bizarre behavior. It could be just waking up from sleep. It could be just Firefox was hung up, Comcast bleeped in the middle of something. Just take a deep breath. Don't hit the nuclear detonator. Don't set it off. Just relax.
Related to that, at the very beginning, you talked about shutting down, and sometimes it hangs up shutting down. And I am someone who I do shut mine down every night. And once in a while, I do get that. I'll come in the morning, and I've got that gray screen. It didn't shut down. What's going on? Or we don't
It
know.
could have been one application just
Didn't quit.
Just didn't quit all the way. Didn't pull the memory back. It could be any number of things. Not that it's a bad thing, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's what we call bizarre behavior. Those things do occur. Also, I get called all the time. If your computer is 3 to 4 years of age, depending upon MacBook, PowerBook, MacBook Air, whether it's an iMac or not, or even an old Mac Pro G4, G5, it cannot run the latest operating system. It may not be able to run Lion, Mountain Lion, Mavericks. Everybody says, hey, it's still pretty, looks good. It's lasted me this long. I should be able to do it. Even if the specs say, yes, you can run Mavericks, but it's old, don't try putting a bigger hard drive in it if it's going to cost a lot of money. Because remember, there's more to just buying a hard drive off Amazon and add some extra RAM from Crucial. You might put out $200-300 just for parts, but then if you don't know what you're doing, you got to call me. Well, there's time for me to, get your data, format a hard drive. I got to install the thing, put your RAM chips in, get the operating system set up, do a restore from all your stuff. It takes time. So, and then don't forget, there's other parts of the computer that can fail. It's not just the hard drive and memory. You got the logic board, you got the video card, you got the screen, keyboard, mouse, battery. So sometimes you just shoot yourself in the foot and throw good money after bad if the machine's getting near its end of life. So try not to waste the money. Sometimes it's a toss-up because you kind of ride that middle where I really could do it, or, should I not? So, and that does happen too.
Dennis? Marilyn here. I ran into this problem with somebody who had an older computer, and we were buying a wireless printer for that computer.
Got it.
And even though it's set on the box, it would work with that operating system. And we tried to plug it in. It wouldn't work with that operating system. But after we called HP, I think it was an HP, after we called HP, they were able to send us to a website
With different drivers.
that would correct it. But it is a big issue if you're trying to buy printers, because they really don't work with old computers.
I forgot to even put that in there. That's actually a very good point, because most printers now, the old cutoff was Snow Leopard 10.6.8. That was a cutoff on the box. Now we're moving up to Lion. So it's a very valid point. If you've got something that's Snow Leopard still running great, because some of us use older Quicken or QuickBooks or even older Photoshop programs and don't want to spend the money going forwards, if your printer fails, you're not going to be able to necessarily get a new printer and have it work. Or works the way the box says it does, because like Marilyn said, they're going to send you to a website that's going to give you a driver. It just makes it print. You may not be able to scan, you may not be able to do wireless things, maybe a direct connection with USB only. So those are things to keep in mind. Thanks, that's actually a very good point. Okay.
Just backtracking again, back to the battery backup system. We have so many lightning strikes around here in the summertime, and if you're gonna be leaving your home for 3 hours and you see a massive storm coming, I mean.
Well, it's kind of hit or miss. You know, those things are designed to take the hit. If you know a storm's coming, like a hurricane or it's going to be bad weather for a while for the day, shut everything down, unplug it from the wall. But also, I'll make sure that the cable line's off the back of your modem too, so it doesn't go into anything else. But that way, at least you're somewhat safe. Is it a guarantee? No, but it's better than nothing. The biggest thing happens is storms come out of nowhere. You're having a nice morning. You go out to lunch with your husband. You come back. And all of a sudden, the storm is blowing through, and now you got power's off in the house, the computer's acting squirrely, and you're like, oh, you got it. So you can't always police it, but it's actually not a bad thing to do.
Dennis, in reference to your comment on not depending on Time Machine and other backup programs, just this week, Time Machine wiped out an entire year's worth of what it saved. It may still be on my hard drive. Do you know of a good file recovery system that might...
Not for a Time Machine, because the way Time Machine does its hierarchy, it's basically taking snapshots of time. When it deletes what it wants, I don't know what it's deleting. There's no way to get that back. It's kind of hard because there's still data there, just not the older data. The newer stuff is, the older stuff isn't. So that's kind of really hard to even try to find out.
But Time Machine will actually do what he just said it did? It'll delete a whole year's worth?
Yeah, here's what happens. Most people understand how Time Machine works. You think that it just takes a bunch of Polaroids. It's like click, 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 every hour on the hour. Whatever changes are different, it stores them. So that way, 2 hours from now, I can go back to what I did 2 hours ago if I made a mistake. It's kind of nice. The whole goal is they say you can, go back years. Well, A, it depends on the size of your hard drive. Okay. B, how much we use the hard drive. If you're just a surf of the internet, doing some emails, some word correspondence, yeah, you're probably going to get 3 years on it because you're not putting anything heavy on it. But if you're doing videos and music and PowerPoint and iPhoto or Aperture, that thing's full. And any big change you make to the library, that's got making big changes, this Time Machine thing. So you're not going to go back this far, and then every so often it says, hey, I got to delete the partition to make room for new stuff. It does. I don't know where it decides to draw a line in the sand. And data recovery from that's not easy. So,
No, but it deletes the
oldest
one back.
one back, right.
But here, in his case, it deleted everything.
Oh, it deleted everything?
It deleted everything. It just wiped out the entire year's worth of backups. And it was a dedicated 3 terabyte hard drive. There was nothing else on it that Time Machine backups.
Did you format the drive before you installed it?
Oh, yeah, months ago when I bought it.
Let me look at it then. I thought it was just the last
Yeah,
section.
because I'm just,
If it's the full drive, then I'll at least look at it.
Beg pardon?
Have you done anything with the drive since?
No.
Then I'll look at it.
Other than when it deleted everything, it did record the latest that I had on the computer. So it only used a very small portion of the 3 terabytes. So
how long have you been recording on it before you did that?
I've been with that. I've been. It goes back about a year and 3 or 4 months.
Well, I got software to look at it. Now, let me ask you a question. Is there something on there that you don't have somewhere else?
There's nothing on there. No.
Then let's do it this way. It's probably not worth going back because I don't know if you guys know anything about data recovery, but here's one of the scariest things. When a hard drive fails, remember I talked about this table of contents, the hierarchy, the index? That's what keeps track of all the stuff on our computer. So when you name something, photos of my Alaska trip, it's recording that in there. When a hard drive fails and it loses its brain, it doesn't know, the pictures are there, but the folder's gone, the name on the folder's gone, the date, everything's gone. It's just a picture. It says JPEG. And I got a Word doc, I got a Pages doc, and I got an email thing. When I go do data recovery, my software finds every single piece of information on the computer. Not just what's current, but everything that you've had thrown away, anything that the computer screen's ever seen that you can see with your eyes from the internet is recorded. So if you only had 200 pictures in your whole iPhoto, I might be bringing back 100,000 pictures. Now, a lot of it might be small things or big things, and a lot of it's stuff you saw on the internet, but this is why data recovery costs a lot of money. Because I'm not just getting your Alaska or your wedding photos, I'm going to get everything that comes back. Now I got to take time, sift it out, find the data, and get it back, depending on how bad the hard drive is. A Word doc, imagine bringing back 10,000 Word docs and you only had 50. So now you got to click on each one and say, oh, that's not it, oh, that's not it, oh, that's not it. So that's why I say backups are important. If that hard drive lost it, it could have been a Time Machine failure, it could have been a hard drive failure, it could have been a connection issue, dirty shutdown, it could be anything why it disappeared. But if it came back after that, I'd be leery of using that hard drive now at this point, to be honest with you. Or I would take the chance of just, if you have everything on your laptop or your computer you need, I'd erase that drive, reformat it, and do Time Machine all over again, just to see how it does. But I'd be leery of the drive if it just dumped it after a period of time. Remember, these things are mass produced. They're made to fail from day one. It's not a matter of why, it's a matter of when. It's going to happen at some point.
That's a good question. I've been noticing recently when you buy a hard drive, the warranty period is less. It used to be like 3 years usually on hard drives, but I've noticed especially the larger, like 3 terabyte hard drives, they're only giving you a year warranty. Are they failing more often or what?
Well, they're mass produced. Here's the other issue. You have to remember this. To honor a warranty, most of the time they want the drive back. So if you've got data on the drive, and if that's the only place you want it, you're going to want to try to get it off first. And then if somebody like me has to open the drive up to get the data off of it, your warranty's voided. Or B, you say, well, you know, I didn't have anything on there like he did, just Time Machine. I still got all my data, I can get it on the drive. He wants to send it in for warranty. He could. They're just going to send another drive. But remember, whatever technically was on the drive, you know, there's data to be gotten back. Now, whether someone's going to do it or not, it's a whole other story. But not everybody can do that. And if that's the only thing you have, like, for example, if it fails on his laptop right now, AppleCare says, hey, send it to us 2 weeks, we'll send you a new one. Because that's how Windows people do it. And then you go, what about my data? Well, we don't touch the data. What am I going to do? Well, if Dennis opens up that drive to get recover his data, his warranty's not voided. There's a lot of gray area with that kind of stuff. Most of the time, I just tell people buy another drive. They're cheap enough nowadays that it's better to have another drive. One of the things real quick, just cleaning out your computer. There's not much really to do, but if you have to, because things are getting squirrely, you can delete all your cache items. I'll have this, I know it's on the camera now, but I'm going to give you guys a copy of the PDF. This is kind of how to do it. It's just where your cache folders are located in the library folders and some stuff in the preferences. When you delete these things, you move them all to the trash can, but you do not empty the trash until you restart the computer. When the computer comes up, then you can do this. But it's not something I recommend doing all the time because you do not have to do that. Stay away from these miracle cures. I talked about it before. Detox my Mac, clean my Mac, Onyx. If you got a major issue and with something, you know, generally they're usually easily fixed. It's delete the preference. It's stock. It's delete the cache log file. If it gets something heavier, I mean, I've had times where I had a print job, they wouldn't just, every time I turned the computer on, I could print out the same piece of paper, nothing in the printer. But there's a Unix command that says how to reset the printer. So there's easier things to do than spending money and doing this and actually messing the system up. I will tell you guys, every time I give a lecture, you're going to see this all the time. Backup, backup, backup. You have options, external hard drives. Carbonite, is in the cloud like Mozy and some others, Dropbox, Box.com. iCloud gets a little bit of stuff. Google, there's a whole bunch coming. I mean, it's going to be endless because really the whole goal now is the reason why the computers, when you buy a laptop now, the hard drives aren't 2 terabytes and 3 terabytes, 128 gigs, 256 gigs, 112 gigs. SSD drives are expensive. And my comment was, guys, why are we going backwards? You know, we're used to buying bigger screens, bigger, bigger, bigger. Now we're going back to spending really $2,000 on a laptop that's got, less than 512 gigs of memory. Something's not right. Their thing is, most of us are moving to the cloud now with all our data. So all the storage facilities we see around Naples to store our junk, well, now they're showing up in the sky, so that's where we're going to be starting to keep our things. So that's the whole thought process. But you have to have an internet connection. That's a whole other issue.
Janet, I wanted to know if you can recommend external hard drives. Some better than others, or does it matter?
Yeah. Well, there's all kinds. You've heard of LaCie, you've heard of Seagate, Western Digital, Maxtor, iOmega. There's a whole bunch of companies out there. I stick with the brand, the manufacturers that actually make the hard drives. I like Seagate. Seagate makes phenomenal drives. Seagate is very good. I stay away from Western Digital. They've gone south over the years. I'm not a fan of their stuff anymore. LaCie's not bad. I think Seagate bought LaCie. So they should be better, because the old days, LaCie basically made a pretty box. And then inside it, it could be a Western Digital, a Seagate, or Hitachi, or Toshiba drive. We had no idea what was in it. You paid for a name. So to me, I stick with Seagate. I'm very happy. iOmega's not bad. The G micro drives, there's some really good ones out there. And they'll often tell you, it's a G drive with a Hitachi, or G box with a Hitachi hard drive in it. Toshiba, Hitachi, Seagate make wonderful hard drives, but at the end of the day, off the shelf, go to the store, you can't go wrong with Seagate. I think they do a good job.
There's only about 3 drive manufacturers out there.
That's true. And then pretty much everyone else just works off them.
How about Drobo?
I'm a fan of Drobo. I love Drobo, but it's a RAID storage device that actually allows you to put multiple hard drives in of any flavor, meaning any brand or any size. And with that, it actually polices itself. So as long as it checks its own internal system on how the hard drive physically is doing, it tells you when you're running out of memory or storage capacity. And if a failure occurs, it's a real simple fix. You don't lose your data. You push a button, pop out the bad drive, go buy a new one, push it in, close the cover, and walk away. I can talk more about Drobo later, but it's actually a wonderful device. Just go through these really quick here, time-wise, but iPad and iPhone tips. There's not much to do with these things, but I try to tell most people, fully charge your device and then run the sucker down. Run it down so you're in the red zone. You got to stretch the battery on these things. Do not leave them plugged in. A lot of people like to say, oh, I played Angry Birds, plug it in. Play Angry Birds, plug it in. If you keep doing this, it's not going to get to stretch its legs and you'll get less battery life. Be mindful of your storage capacity. An iPad and an iPhone are not replacements for these laptops or desktops. A lot of people think they are, they're not. They're peripheral. Someday they will replace that. The MacBook Air is kind of that. Okay.
Well, what about a MacBook Pro laptop? Does that have to be run down periodically?
Yes, I was going to get to anything that has a battery in it, you should run it down. Not all the way till it's off. I mean, you could, but it actually goes to sleep at the last 2% until you plug it in and holds a steady state if the computer was already on. But definitely, the laptops, the iPads, the iPhones, the iPod Touches, you got to wear these things down to get your battery life out of them. If the battery's going to go bad, I'd rather go bad because of use, not because I keep charging it all the time. Because they do burn up. Storage capacity, so if you got a 16 gig, people say, oh, I just do little stuff. I just bought a small iPad, it's cheaper. Yeah, they're cheaper, but 16 gigs, after you put the operating system on it, you're left with like 9.5 gigs. But my wife, I just looked at what was on her iPad. She has 2 video games. One's 2.5 gigs. It's a video game. It's from the 80s. And another one's a big gig. So she's got 3 gigs and 2 apps. So they tell you there's a lot of apps on the store, but they do take up space. Some are small, some are big. So you gotta be mindful of how much storage you have, because when you take your pictures with the phone and there's no place to store them, or you can't download any more emails because the phone's filling up, or the iPad. Remove the apps that are not being used. The same goes into play if you download a movie. If you're done with the movie, take it off the device. Backup from Mac and Windows people, everything goes through the iTunes program, and the iCloud only gets so much information, so I do a full backup. So if you open up iTunes, and the iPad's plugged in or the iPhone, you can actually do a full backup and back up the whole thing to the computer. So giving yourself an extra layer of protection. If you got a lot of pictures and videos, transfer them to whatever flavor of devices, software you use. Some use iPhotos, some use Aperture, some use Lightroom, Picasa. Some store them in Dropbox, and those things do occur. So, but do get your stuff out of there. The day you drop it, it gets wet. You may not get your data back. Also, remove all the stuff that you don't need, so that actually gives you more room and keeps it fresh. You guys know how to quit all your apps? Tell me how you did it. How do you quit your apps?
Oh, how I quit them?
Why not?
Yeah, double tap the home button on the new iOS 7. Double tap the home button and slide your finger up on the apps and they go away. The older operating system, you double tap the home button and then a little drawer pulls up on the bottom. You see all your icons that are open in the line across the bottom. You push and hold on one of them so they all start wiggling, and you'll see looks like a do not enter sign or a red dot. Push on each one of those dots and it shuts off the apps. Turning off the phone and turning it back on does not shut off the apps. They have to be done manually by you. So if your phone, like my wife's phone wasn't working the other day, she couldn't get email, and it's because, I kid you not, 37 apps were open. I said, you close them? She goes, yeah, you turn it on, turn it back on, it doesn't work. I'm like, okay, so I didn't get my wife on. That didn't go very well. But that's an important thing to do, and do that often because it keeps your phone and your iPad running fresh. There are many great apps out there, but remember this, just because there's 100,000, million, whatever apps are incoming in the Apple Store now, if you get a weather app, they're not all the same. Some are free, some you pay for. some are 99 cents, some are $50. The $50 app is not necessarily any better than the one that was free. So read the reviews, read lots of reviews, and then look at other apps. But you try them out, but if you don't like them, delete them. Do not leave them plugged in, like I said. Try to keep it in your possession at all times. I know that sounds silly, but I can't tell you how many times, I'm at Starbucks sometimes in the morning, how many people get their coffee, fix it, prep it, get their sip, and walk out that door, and their iPad and iPhone are sitting right where they set it, so.
It happened at 4 o'clock at Starbucks on Central today, with 2 cops picking it up.
So it happens all the time, especially, yeah. And of course, nowadays you'd be nervous because someone's leaving something behind you for your
Right?
nowadays. Check your iCloud settings to see what's being synced or not synced. Sometimes people go, hey, my address book doesn't show up on my iPad. Make sure we go to iCloud settings to see if it's actually syncing your address book or contacts, as we call them. Reprogram itself. Let's see. Buy a real protective case. I know that people like that bling. I have one client. She's got a lot of money. She keeps dropping her stuff. I said, no, we're going to get you an OtterBox. She goes, but it doesn't have any bling. So, believe it or not, I got an ugly case in my OtterBox, but I showed it to her, and we went, and she actually had jewels all glued in. It looks really nice when she did. She's all happy, but they offer no protection. But the OtterBox, they do, and I'm a fan of these guys. I mean, they're pretty rugged, they're recessed, some are even waterproof. This one here is one of their newer ones that's waterproof. Actually works better than the LifeProof case. LifeProof isn't bad. The problem with LifeProof I hear often is people can't hear them, and it's hard to hear somebody else. It's totally encapsulated. Definitely waterproof. They work well.
There's at least three or four OtterBox lines, depending on
Yeah,
the
you have the Commuter
thickness.
series, the Defender series, and there's another one. But I like the Defender series because these are made to take the drops. And if you have to replace one, it means without Apple Care, they're expensive. So I definitely like these things. This actually works very well. It's waterproof. It's got two flaps. Bloop, lid opens, pull the phone out, put it back in, click, you're on your way. The other ones you got to take apart and undo and all the different clips and pieces. This actually works very well. So then they're getting better. They're trying to make them stronger and better and somewhat waterproof, but there's always a trade-off. If it's waterproof, you can use sound quality, both for you and what them hearing you as well.
How deep can you dive?
I haven't tried. The funny part is I found out for somebody, I had somebody go underwater once, but his finger was so cold, he could not pick the slide underwater to take pictures. He's like, that's kind of stupid. So.
I read an article that said the new iOS 7 is a battery heater upper. Is that true?
Well, here's one thing, and it's actually a very good point. This is one of the things most people understand. Every time there's been an update since iOS 7, so with all the different increments in between, I don't know if you noticed, if you don't have any Bluetooth devices, some people have headsets and things, it's actually turned Bluetooth on, and it turns your Wi-Fi on. So if you didn't have Bluetooth or Wi-Fi set, go to your settings and look, you'll be like, I didn't realize that. Because even if, we're in this library right now, if you're not subscribed to the library network, the thing is sniffing. It's like, I got to find a wireless network. And then the Bluetooth's going, I'm looking for Bluetooth something. So you get home, you're like, why am I 45%? It's because it's been searching. So be sure, if you don't use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, turn them off.
I know that you said suggested you buy Apple Care for your product.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to somebody who was buying a computer, and I recommend they buy Apple Care. And then I said, you might want to consider the one-on-one if you're new to doing this.
Absolutely.
And the question she asked me was, does Apple Care answer problems about how to do stuff or just fix problems?
Apple Care is designed for hardware issues.
That's
Okay.
what I told her, but I wasn't sure.
The one-to-one will give, there are some people, it depends on who you talk to. The main care center is in Austin, and oftentimes you'll get someone say, what are you trying to do? Hey, look, I just come across a problem. They may help you. But generally, as a whole, that's why they do the one-to-one, because they want you to come in and work with them.
I've always found, not for training or anything like that, but if I, had a problem in a particular software program, as long as it's an Apple program, not a third party. I remember, I can't remember what it was, but I had a repeating problem one time in Pages. They will work with that.
I was thinking more of the training aspect as opposed to fixing something. Yeah, okay.
I subscribe to one-on-one. It's great.
It is.
One person, and for a whole hour, they just deal with you. You bring your equipment, whatever you need in, and ask any question. The really dumb ones, you know, they don't giggle much, and and they walk you right through it, and you can do it often according to the guide as much as you want.
It's over now, so if you guys want to go, you can, otherwise stay and ask all the questions you want. It's up to you. But, yeah, that's a very good point. The Apple Store guys are very helpful, there's a lot of good stuff up there. If you need to buy a new computer, okay, you can mention my name, Dennis with MVP Studios, you should get a 5% discount on anything. You go talk to Christopher Rowan or Adrian Jimenez, they're the business people up at Waterside. Even if you're not a business person, they'll at least get you a 5% break. It does not transfer for iPads or iPhones.
What were those names, Christopher?
Christopher Rowan, R-O-W-A-N,
I
and
put it on the
Adrian.
discussion group a while ago.
There's when you load pictures from your camera onto your computer, I always felt the way Bob Kennedy did, that it's better to format in your camera, reformat your SD card. But I read, I think it was on Macworld, somebody said, no, you should do it when at the end, when it says, do you want to erase the thing?
No, what I do is, I do the manufacturer thing. I delete it on the camera or device.
Right.
You do? You don't reformat?
Yeah, on the device. I reformat on the device. I don't say delete the photos.
Right.
Yeah, I just ignore that and just say leave them where they are, and then I go to the device and reformat and make the card fresh again.
Thank you.
You bet.
Dennis, I have about 3 computers, and I had this really great brainstorm that, well, what I was going to do is put my iPhoto library on Dropbox and it would sync them all, and that was problematic. But so what's the best way to solve that problem?
Don't put it on Dropbox.
I know that, but what's the best way?
Okay, now,
Is there an
this is going
alternative?
to sound silly. I just found out about a product, and I just showed Vicky it. It's called Transporter Sync. For the people who made the Drobo device made this new thing. Basically, this little device goes with you everywhere you go, and you can sync all the data and have access to all your files between your iPhone, your iPad, your laptops, your desktops, work at home. So, let's see, we have access to the internet here?
Yeah.
Computer guys sort of Dunkin' Donuts too?
You like that?
When we get the 100 meg download stuff, will we still be able to see the beach ball? Or will that be spinning so fast we won't be able to notice it?
Honestly, I think you're going to get the beach ball no matter what, because it's inherent to the operating system or whatever's going on with the logic board, whatever's processed at that point. You know, the beach ball isn't necessarily with just the internet speeds, it's whatever the computer's doing at the same time. You got a bunch of apps open, you may be hanging up something Photoshop doing behind the scenes while you have Safari up in front of you.
And with,
But it should be less.
And with the cloud and all of that stuff, there really isn't any, their redundancy isn't physical, right? That's still static too.
Say that again?
When stuff goes to the cloud, that's still stored as static. It's not stored on tape or anything like that, right? So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of time before CME comes and hits us, and we're going to lose everything in
Absolutely.
this library.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, tape backups are some of the best. When I got big businesses, I'll put a tape drive in. They're expensive, but they work. Nobody wants to pay the money. So hard drive space, these hard drives are getting bigger. You start doing these arrays, they're a dime a dozen, but it's all magnetic, so an SSD is too expensive, so everything's still full-size hard drive. When these things fail, or like you said, an EMP shows up, we're in trouble.
An EMP comes from a nuclear explosion. I don't think you're going to have to worry about your computer.
No, we would hope not. But here's what I'm saying to keep in mind. Whatever data you have in the cloud, oftentimes most people partner with an outside agency for redundancy backup. Carbonite has their main offices, I think, east, north, I don't know if it's Rhode Island
Salt
or Maine,
Lake.
it's north. But they have one back up in Seattle, and they also do something over in the EU, but they won't say where that server is. Okay, well that's fine, but how do I know somebody's not going to start messing with my data who's disgruntled, across the pond, and there's no way to do, to know. When they tell you it's encrypted and saved, I don't believe any of this stuff, because anybody, remember, for every lock there's a key. Somebody has to have a key to it eventually. So, otherwise, if they held your data, you couldn't get back to it, there'd be a problem.
NSA will probably give you data.
So what's this transporter sync
I'm gonna
cost?
bring it up right now, transporter.
You lost your video.
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna bring it up right now.
Okay.
I had to get to the Wi-Fi. This is some of the stuff this little device does. But I'm just learning about it, so apparently this is going to be like our own little local cloud with us. You can plug a hard drive into it as well. So you're supposed to be able to share and store all your stuff and consolidate all your things. I'm new to this as much as it was in the last 24 hours. So I want to get one of these devices, try it out, use it, and see if it works, and then bring it to you guys so you can decide.
You'll let us know.
Yeah, see if it's worth doing. Everyone's got a gimmick out there. They're all trying to get your business. They're all trying to figure out a way to keep your data, store your data. The problem is we have a lot of them. So the problem is getting it someplace and getting it to where we want it and moving it fast. It's up in the cloud. I mean, most people don't understand. I had a doctor's office who has carbonite. They're a maxillofacial surgeon. The radiology suite alone, I have countless, terabytes of images. Their previous computer guy put them in carbonite. That was 1.5 years ago. Guess how much data has been backed up within 1.5 years?
20%.
Not even a quarter.
Wow.
Now, all his physical hard drives are removed from the facility. So I'm like, because the guy actually took the drives out and left the power supply. I'm like, I think you're missing some stuff. He goes, oh no, we have carbonite. So I go click on the things, all the dots are yellow on everything he's got in the office. It means it hasn't been backed up yet. So I go look and I go, wow, I opened up his thing. I said, you better call your previous computer guy because all your stuff isn't even anywhere near being done. Well, it turns out he's up near, right across the street from North Carter Hospital. He's at the end run for CenturyLink. Comcast is not plugged to his building, and all he has is CenturyLink. And unfortunately, they can't increase his speed. So he's got like 3 down to like 512 up. So he's got less than up to, at one point, up to 128K, which is like dial-up speed, just to get up in the cloud. So he's in trouble. So we've actually done some physical backups. But these are things to keep in mind. It takes a while to get your data up to the cloud, because we pay for download more so than upload. The problem is, now try to get your data back if something really arises. Any other questions?
This game was a little far.
Thank you.